Is there a business case for a new HR blueprint? To answer this question, we need to upfront address the disruptive environment. An ecosystem not of stability has been replaced by continuous upheaval. The business landscape is being altered, and nowhere is this shift more acute or challenging than within a human resources profession. We are here to talk about HR disruptors. HR occupy a pivotal juncture, experiencing critical dissonance between its stated objectives and its subsequent execution, rendering the prevailing disparity fundamentally untenable. Perennially, the discipline has vacillated between aspiring strategic relevance and enduring transactional operationalism, choosing rhetorical intent over verifiable, quantifiable outcomes. Within the context of an inherently disruptive global economy, largely characterized by speculative assumptions of an unknown future, share market driven punting, worker entitlements, right and left perspectives, and highly malleable business frameworks, this persistent ambiguity must yield to decisive clarity in both delineation of mission and efficacy of execution. Let's explore further. This presentation series is based on the book Digital People Organization Disruptive Human Resources, published by Dr. Ganesh Sherman of KPMG LLP and now River Forest Connections, Inc. The challenge facing HR today is not about proving its value, it's about responding to what the business urgently needs. Organizations require a constant pipeline of future ready talent, the ability to deploy people quickly into complex and evolving roles, and decision making that blends intelligence, judgment, and human empathy. They also need cultures that can stay resilient in the face of ongoing uncertainty. In this environment, co creation means full integration. HR can no longer operate as a back office support function. It must work alongside leadership to shape outcomes. This requires being deeply embedded in strategy and taking clear accountability for building organizational capability. The expectation is clear and non negotiable. HR must transform from a support role into a driving force, one that enables adaptability, strengthens readiness, and directly impacts business performance. We have previously established a clear distinction between perceived HR function and actual workplace dynamics in our presentation on HR reality and myths. Now we must continue that vital dissection by bravely confronting the genuine landscape HR often occupies. The inconvenient truth is that HR is frequently relegated to administrative oversight rather than strategic guidance, severely lacking the authority to champion pivotal systemic shifts. We too often witness a function trapped in bureaucratic red tape, where personalized employee support is sacrificed on the altar of operational issues and challenges. It's a disturbing reality that HR is commonly perceived as a management's buffer, prioritizing organizational compliance over individual allyship. We must understand that HR achieves true relevance only when its people strategy is interwoven directly into the company's fundamental operational and strategic framework. Why is this transition so difficult? The paralyzing fear of real advocacy is an issue. Why is this transition becoming a challenge for executives? Because executives are paralyzed by the fear of a genuinely empowered HR. They do not carry an agenda against people advocates out of ignorance. They do it out of self preservation. Real advocacy threatens their unearned autonomy and unchecked power. To protect their status quo, they have allowed administrative service functions to mutate into bloated bureaucratic dictatorships. These departments place a literal chokehold on the business, suffocating agility and actively preventing top talent from actually doing their jobs. Why is this transition so difficult? The paralyzing fear of real advocacy is an issue. Why is this transition becoming a challenge for executives? Because executives are paralyzed by the fear of a genuinely empowered HR. They do not carry an agenda against people advocates out of ignorance. They do it out of self preservation. Real advocacy threatens their unearned autonomy and unchecked power. To protect their status quo, they have allowed administrative service functions to mutate into bloated bureaucratic dictatorships. These departments place a literal chokehold on the business, suffocating agility and actively preventing top talent from actually doing their jobs. We are confronting in reality the toxic theater of hypocrisy. Let's really expose this corporate theater for exactly what it is. Manipulative leadership is manufacturing deceit through the cowardice of pretentious policies and pathetic popularity driven spectacles. They try to mask systemic operational rot with forced celebrations, empty public relations stunts, and toxic positivity. But an ecosystem built on lies is fundamentally hollow. A culture of untruth is nothing but a temporary void. It possesses absolutely no structural integrity, and unlike the truth, it's guaranteed to expire. I call this the inevitable collapse of the spectacle. You might manipulate your way into a quarter of superficial gains. You might be able to extract short lived, gritted teeth compliance from your workforce. But make no mistake, in the process, you're permanently incinerating trust and breeding an irreversible toxic cynicism across your entire organization. Leaders who tend to prioritize optical spectacle and superficiality over hard, uncompromising substance inevitably isolate themselves, ending up ruling over an empire of delusion and dismay. The only assailable foundation for lasting organizational achievement is brutal, unfiltered truth. It's the only force capable of cutting through chaos and ensuring actual long term survival. The mandate for total transformation is now on the cards. We are done being defined by our own paralyzing limitations. The only acceptable response to this systemic rot is to tear down the old models and aggressively architect an uncompromising transformational agenda. We are not tweaking the system, we are replacing the foundation. The death of compliance and the demand for ownership makes the difference. We are officially done accepting mere compliance as a standard of success. Checking boxes is a survival mechanism for the mediocre. We demand absolute, undeniable ownership. We are hunting for professionals who refuse to hide behind process and policy and who take visceral accountability for the reality on the ground. Technical skill is just the bare minimum entry fee. What we ruthlessly require is the ironclad character and values to wield those skills without corrupting the institution. How are we going to make this happen? Let's start with execution over empty rhetoric. We are finished with executives who govern by speech, town halls, and empty exhortations. We should demand execution. To me, all talker time is over. We must forcefully engineer a new breed of leadership, not just a bureaucratic pipeline, but a system that ensures our leaders aren't technically proficient, just that, but are genuinely respected and willingly followed by the workforce. We should also be absolutely honest. If your people do not accept your authority at a human level, you aren't leading them, you're just occupying a chair. I can really visualize a ruthless pursuit of performance by leaders in the human resources function. We must truly eradicate the siloed, narrow minded bureaucrats who protect the departmental turf. We require relentless operators, leaders who embed directly with the business, violently ignoring functional boundaries. The ultimate, unapologetic goal of this transformation is not HR efficiency, it's driving a tangible, aggressive increase in actual organizational performance. We should drive hard profitability, market dominance, and sustainable growth. Everything else is just noise. And for this, HR has to be right there, center and front. To me, executing this transformational bill does not happen in a void. We now face distinct leadership contradictions. There is a fine line between getting people to perform and getting sued. The contrast between standing up to be counted versus remaining silent. Dissonance when leaders tweet values they don't practice, creating widespread staff voice dissonance through social and other public media. We must confront the paradox of leaders asking what good is HR if staff cannot be controlled? But control is not the best way to manage staff, isn't it? And HR simultaneously wondering about the same and engagement. The expert is not just a designation. We must act, behave, and contribute as one. The buck must stop with true accountability, not with foolish cover up statements from cronies. These are critical warnings. Adding more rules in organization can unfortunately help the rise of psychopaths and control freaks to leadership roles. We see that stress can make leaders unethical and negative acts break the moral code are the first signs of stress, and that needs to be managed upfront. This brings us to a critical point. Good leaders must learn to manage loneliness, for too many are bewildered by an inability to work together because they are blinded by the need to showcase. Failure to undertake this transformational agenda places us in serious peril. A failure of transformation is not neutral, it results in a detailed blueprint of a dysfunctional people culture. This creates a disruptive ecosystem that strangles organizational life. This dysfunctional system is defined by a distinct lack of responsiveness. We are unable to reward people on a fair and equitable basis and are unable to keep promises to stakeholders. We see a culture needing to build linkages that is instead crushed by arrogance and tyrannical leaders. We see the failure of externalization of internal issues. This is when leadership hires consultants to find a scapegoat for their failures. Leaders attribute failures to you and successes to themselves. Listen more to consultants than to direct reports and cannot listen to your dreams and aspirations. A true recipe for failure. The detailed failure of responsibility leads to a failure of role definition necessity, where leaders lack credibility and arrogantly ignore feedback, blinding them to problem resolution. This blueprint for the new HR is a response to an undeniable reality. The traditional concept of HR is dead. It wasn't gently phased out. We are no longer a subservient administrative function trapped in the bureaucracy of standard recruiting, training, and policy policing. The pretenses of the past were popularity driven engagement events masked rigid, joyless processes that actively constrain true performance have been permanently disrupted. In their place rises the transformational people organization. Our mandate is no longer to simply manage resources, but to act as proactive architects of business resilience. This requires us to relentlessly scrutinize our org design, anticipate disruptive forces shaping the future of work, and demand radical, undeniable accountability at every level. We must dismantle outdated structures and engineer an environment where reason, truth, and human potential are the ultimate drivers of the business. Conventional HR administration has run its course. We are now navigating the disrupted people organization, a paradigm shift that requires proactive leadership. It's time for us to move forward.